Hello, welcome back. My name is Kath. This is Walter, and we live in this van. I have been living in this van for the last 5 years. Today we are out in nature, but it is significantly hotter than I anticipated that it would be. So I figured I'd make a short video to share some tips and tricks that we have to survive living in a van without air conditioner in the heat. Right now it is 5:46 and it is 90 degrees. It was much hotter earlier in the hottest part of the day, which Walter and I spent laying in bed, relaxing, and watching some TV, which is one of my first suggestions. If you are in the heat and you do not have something that you need to do, I would suggest spending the hottest portion of the day relaxing with all of the lights off, doing an activity that doesn't take much energy or stress, and instead being the mammal that you are and being lazy in the warmth. Another tip that we have is to wear some type of scarf that you can wet and then keep on your body. Walter has his own right here. It is this little collar that I bought from the store that is specifically meant for dogs. What you do is just put water on it, get it wet. And I've noticed that even if he's panting and he's really warm, as soon as I put that on him, he stops panting. He seems a lot more comfortable. I do the same for my own scarf, and it does also help keep me a lot cooler. If it is an extreme circumstance, you can also do this with a large t-shirt. Take a very large t-shirt, wet the entire thing, and wear it. There is one time that I was in Joshua Tree National Park and it was 105 degrees and I could not sleep, even with 2 MaxxAir fans, and I wore a large wet t-shirt to bed just so I could sleep. And the great thing is, as long as you have enough water, this is something that you can continuously do. As the water evaporates, you just put more water on whatever it is and it will help continue to keep you cool. Another thing I would suggest is making sure that you do not have these overhead lights on. These lights actually get very warm to the touch and exude a lot of heat. I would suggest instead having something small like these fairy lights that you can run in your van. They are a lot cooler to the touch. They don't use as much electricity. They don't put off as much heat, and it's something that will give you light that will not warm the temperature of your van. When it is really hot, I would also suggest making sure that you have your windows covered with some type of reflective film. That reflective film is going to help bounce those UV rays back out of the van or help them not penetrate into the van. I've noticed that my van is significantly cooler when I keep all of the windows covered, and therefore I would suggest you do it. What I have is I have Reflectix that has been sewn over with black cloth. That way it is less visible through the tinted window. But even if you use a bare Reflectix, this will work really well to help keep your van cool. Another thing that I do is on the side of my van, I have a large reflective emergency blanket. I usually put this on the part of the van that has the longest exposure to the sun, and that helps keep the van significantly cooler as well. This is just an emergency blanket that I use that I purchased off of Amazon. You can find my link in the bio if you want, or you can find something equivalent. I love that. If you have some type of canopy, putting that out like an awning will also help shade your van and keep it cool as well. It was very windy today, so I wasn't able to put one up, but I would suggest putting out your awning as well. Even if you're not going to sit outside, it's going to help cast a shadow on the side of your van. And then you can put the reflective blanket on the other side. That's going to help keep your van a lot cooler. When I am parked somewhere that is hot and very sunny, I also have the tendency to point the front of my van towards the evening sun and the back of my van towards the morning sun. That way, when the less intense morning sun rises, it hits the back of my van where my living is, And then it goes over the top of my van and then over the front. And when that sun is really beating down in the middle of the day and at the end of the day, it's hitting that front windshield, the front cab area, and the engine, where there is some type of barrier between the front and the back to help keep some of that heat out. I also have blackout curtains between the cab area and the back house area of the van. That helps trap that heat in the front cab area, in addition to keeping the heat minimal in the front by having some type of windshield cover. And I do also have that same Reflectix cover for the windows, for both front windows. That keeps the van significantly cooler. Highly suggest you go about doing that as well. Trying to drink water. Don't cook anything that's hot. Instead, have cool foods. That's going to keep your body temperature lower. And if you're not cooking anything, it's also going to keep heat out of your van. If you would like to cook food, it might be a better option instead if it is too hot to cook outside. That way, that heat is not being generated inside of your house. So whatever temperature it is outside of your van is going to be the temperature inside of your van. There's nothing that you can do to make the temperature cooler inside the van besides having AC or some type of AC alternative. All you can do is try and prevent it from being extra warm in here by preventing those UV rays, that sunlight and the heat from penetrating in through your windows, having insulation in your walls that's going to help stop the heat from penetrating through your walls. And then also having good circulation, so stagnant air and heat is constantly being moved out of the van. One of the things I would suggest is to have some type of fan, roof fan. I have a MaxxAir fan, and I would suggest having some type of fan that can both suck air in, but also pull air out. So there is an option on this fan to have air blow in, but also can take air from like a side window and pull it up through the roof. Having both options is really going to help. I've noticed, depending on the type of day, if the sun is directly overhead and the roof is very hot, it's usually better to pull that air from a side window and out through the roof. But if you're not getting that overhead direct sunlight, I found it's actually cooler to pull the air in through the fan and have it like something that's generating air into the van. I hope you understand what I meant by that. The other reason why it's good to have that MaxxAir fan that can both pull air in and take air from a side window and bring it out is if you do decide to cook in your van, it's going to help pull that hot air from you cooking out of the van. Having your doors open, if you can, is another great way to have ventilation, but it's really going to depend on your situation and where you are, how beneficial it is to have the doors open rather than closed, because when the doors are open, you're going to get a lot more ventilation, but you're also going to have a lot more exposure to those UV rays and the sunlight that normally would be blocked by the doors being closed and the windows covered. In addition to covering the windows with that Reflectix, having some type of curtain that also hangs in front of the window is going to help the air have another barrier where it's going to keep the temperature of your van better. During the summer, during the winter, I've noticed that both the heat gets trapped behind the curtain and the cool air from outside gets trapped behind the curtain. So that way, the inside of your van is more temperature regulated. These are my 2 window covers for the back, and you can even see how much the UV rays have affected the window covers over all of these years. Even this side is a lighter black than it was when I originally got it. But look at the difference between this side that has been facing towards the inside of the van and this side that's been facing out from the van. Even with the tinted windows that I have on my van, the UV rays have been penetrating and bleaching this black fabric. So inside of this black fabric, I have Reflectix. You might be able to hear it. These window covers stop not only the light from exiting the van, so I can have privacy at night, and so I can be more stealth and people are not able to see that there are lights on in here, but also stop that hot air or that heat from coming in and the colds from coming in, whether it's summer or winter. That, in addition to this curtain, makes it to where the heat will hit the window. Some of it will get reflected back through the Reflectix, and then any that comes in will hit the curtain, and then heat rises and the cold falls. So, do you have something to say, sir? I'll take that as no comment. So, we have talked about covering the windows, how to not generate more heat inside of your van, how to position your van compared to the sun, ways that you can stop heat from coming into your van by having a tarp and some type of emergency blanket. We've talked about the ventilation with the MaxxAir fan, but the simplest thing you can also do to keep yourself cool are fans. I have 2 fans, and these are also something that's going to help you feel more comfortable in the heat. Once again, there's no way to make the inside of your van cooler in temperature than whatever it is outside unless you have air conditioner. So why don't I have air conditioner? There's a few reasons why I don't have air conditioner. One of the reasons is that I did not want to use so much space on my roof and cut so many holes in my roof to also install an air conditioner in my van. Air conditioners are either very large or very expensive. Usually, at least when I built the van back in 2021, there isn't something that is both affordable and small and energy efficient. So if you have some type of air conditioner, likely it is going to take the spot of your MaxxAir fan or your other type of roof fan, or you're going to have to use even more space on the roof of your van to have another control panel ventilation for both a MaxxAir fan and an air conditioner. I did not want that, so I went with a MaxxAir fan. Truthfully, I wouldn't have been able to afford an air conditioner anyways. The other thing is, if you do have an air conditioner, you can't afford one. You are okay with using the real estate on both your roof and your ceiling inside of your van. Air conditioners use a lot of power. You're going to need quite a lot of stored power, and you're going to need a lot of incoming energy generation. So you will either need to be driving a lot, have a lot of solar panels bringing in a lot of solar energy, or be plugged into land power, shore power, to have the energy coming in to go into your stored battery, and then have enough batteries to be generating the air conditioner in addition to everything else in your van, like the lights. When I first started in the van, I only had 100 amp hours of lithium ion battery. Now I have 320, and I never investigated how much power it would take, but I know you would need a lot more than 300 amp hours of lithium ion battery and 2 100-watt solar panels. Anyone who does know how much power you would need, please leave it in the comments. So anyone who happens upon this video who may be wondering how much power you need has some type of idea of what they would need in their van if they decided they wanted air conditioner. There is another form of air conditioner that some van lifers use. There are actually 2 other forms of air conditioner that van lifers use. One of them is called a swamp cooler. I have never used a swamp cooler, but it is some type of like cooler box where you put ice, and it has a fan, and as that fan blows, it pulls cold air past the ice, and then it creates cold air inside of your van. From my understanding, swamp coolers generate a lot of humidity. So do keep in mind that your van might be cooler, but there's going to be significantly more humidity inside your van, which might cause warping in your cabinetry, in your ceiling, in your walls, with any type of wood that you have. It could also cause like mold growth and different things like that. Just something to keep in mind. I have no personal experience with it. A lot of van lifers also have individual AC units that are something that you plug in, that they sell at like Walmart. They're like a standing AC unit, and that standing AC unit just needs to have some type of exhaust outside and then some way to plug in. Once again, these use a lot of energy compared to how much energy most people have in their van. So you will likely need to be plugged into shore power to have enough power to generate this type of AC. It might be something that's a better option for people who live in a van in a more stationary place. I think that's all the suggestions I can think of right now. If you have any suggestions on how to stay cool in a van with no AC, leave them in the comments. If I think of anything that I forgot, maybe I will click back on and I will let you know, but likely I will also leave them down in the pinned comment. If you would please like, subscribe, and hype the video. I'm going to try and post not only the videos of like the adventures and the van build, but I'm going to try and give you guys tips and tricks on how to live in a van. Maybe why you wouldn't want to, why you would want to live in a van, how to handle living in a van. I would like to think that after 5 years, I have enough experience to talk about it. If you guys have any other questions for another video you'd like me to make, leave them also in the comments below. I have been mentally thinking of making a video on safety in a van, but I want that video to encompass like all safety. So it's going to take a lot more work. And when I mean all safety, I mean how to safely live in a van with working on your own van, with like roadside emergencies, with staying safe, with being stealth. So that video is coming. It just might take a little bit of time and it'll probably be pretty long. Anyways, me and Walter are finally gonna go on our walk and try to enjoy some of this beautiful nature now that the sun is not so intense and it's a bit cooler outside. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for being here. Bye. Special thank you to my members, Casey Army Babe, Livin' La Vida Astro, RJ, Robert Lead, Hit the Road Jack, and AJ Jan Schwitz. I hope you guys have a lovely day. Bye.